Hey everybody, my name is Paul Leston Jr., aka Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. We're streaming live simultaneously in 3 different locations. The Heavy on Jets Facebook page to over 25,000 New York Jets fans. My YouTube channel, youtube.com/BoyGreen25. Make sure you like the video, hit subscribe down below for more juicy New York Jets content. And of course, on my Twitter account, @BoyGreen25 as well. Again, you see the new gear here, very nice. All this Christmas, hey, got some new Jets gear, so you'll be seeing me debuting some items here on all the live streams. Everybody, in case you're new to the show, this is a show by the people for the people. If you'd like to get involved on the Facebook page, YouTube, what have you, dive into the comment section. We'll bring some of those up on the show. Every Wednesday, we do the Boy Green and Buffalo show. Buffalo is a YouTube content creator covering the New York Jets. Again, the Buffalo Jet fan. His description and YouTube link is down in the bio below on our YouTube channel. So guys, feel free to check it out. We alternate who is hosting on a week-to-week basis on our YouTube channel. So guys, feel free to check him out. He'll be joining us here in just a second. But we're going to do a healthy mix here today. Of course, we're going to talk about the Derek Carr Jets-Raiders, all those trade rumors that are floating out there. We'll dive into that. Although I'd like to keep much of that conversation for the offseason because obviously the Jets have a lot to play for this week against the Seattle Seahawks. However, we will be diving into those. We will talk about the do-or-die nature, of course, of the Jets playing the Seattle Seahawks. More on that in a little bit as well. And, of course, there's 2 regular season games left, baby. I mean, this is what everyone foretold. Joe Douglas said it. Robert Saleh said it. They want to play meaningful football in December, and of course they did. Unfortunately, they lost all those December action, but now there's going to be an opportunity here in January where the Jets have a legitimate, realistic path to the postseason, path to the playoffs, and they have not been there, of course, in 11 years in running. It's the longest active drought in the NFL. No one's close. The next closest, I believe, is the Broncos, who have 6. So the Jets are by and away number 1 in that category, and I'd like that to end this year. I don't care how the Jets do it. I don't care who they're playing, backups, this position, that position. Get a ticket to the dance, and let's see what happens. You never know what matchup you're going to get, who gets hot, who makes things happen, and who better than, of course, Mike White, who was medically cleared earlier this week by both his doctors, the Jets team doctors, and he is now QB1, not only for this week against the Seattle Seahawks, but for the rest of the season. And Zach Wilson has been cryogenically frozen. He's been thrown into the dark abyss, and that is a Zach Wilson conversation for the future. Joe Flacco is QB2 on this team. The one thing we will investigate, the one thing we will dive into, is whether or not Chris Streveler will be activated for this game. Now, I don't imagine, outside of some injury scenario, that Chris Streveler is going to have this massive package in the way that he did on Thursday Night Football, where he came in, had a buzz, and the coaching staff just kind of went, let's see what happens. And they kept rolling him out there. I don't think there's that, but I think there is a usage. I think there is a plan in short yardage situation that the Jets could really maximize old Chris Streveler, and they could really get him going, especially with the Jets' inability in those situations, again, on those 3rd and 4th down opportunities. So that's something personally I would like to see as well from the New York Jets, and we will see if that's the case. And really, this Jets-Seahawks game, on top of individually speaking, it being critically important to the Jets, if they lose, they're eliminated. It's over. There's no other path. On Monday Night Football, the LA Chargers punched their own ticket to the playoffs by beating the Indianapolis Colts, who are completely inept. I know this is a Jets show, but I just have to go on a quick diatribe, a quick detour. The Colts freaking suck, man. Jeff Saturday sucks. Nick Foles sucks. Like, oh, man, just to go on, again, a random thing here, that Nick Foles at one point went on this crazy run. The Eagles have only 1 Super Bowl in their history. It's thanks to Nick freaking Foles, the Philly special, the crazy playoff run, and winning the Super Bowl. And then he's turned into an absolute squash, an absolute pumpkin. Like, for one night, he was Cinderella, and now the glass slipper won't fit on his fat cankle anymore. Like, what the hell happened with Nick Foles? That's what I want to know. How did he was it, and now he's not it? They're like, Nick Foles, like, who are you? I mean, he looked like one of the most inept quarterbacks I've ever seen in action on Monday Night Football. So that was absolutely bizarre. But fortunately, while it would have been cool for the Jets to have multiple opportunities potentially to get into the playoffs, and if the Chargers would have lost, it would have been a backdoor way potentially to get in. At the end of the day, if we're all being blunt, The real way and the most realistic shot was always the path that still exists for the New York Jets right now, and that is winning their final 2 games and the Patriots losing once. Again, if the Chargers would have lost, there would have been an alternate way, but in all reality, that was hoping for all kinds of crazy crap. This path that they have right now is the real thing. And quite frankly, this is probably going to sound weird because you want as many opportunities and pathways to the playoffs. I kind of like this. There is a sense of conviction. There is not a thought process of if the Chargers would have lost to the Colts, we could have said, well, if the Jets win out, like, they can maybe get in. But man, if they lose, they could possibly get in. There's no maybe. There's no coulda, woulda, shoulda. It is simple. If the Jets lose, it's freaking over. If they lose, they're out. The playoffs are eliminated. There's 1 ticket left. Technically, there's 2 tickets left in the AFC playoff picture. That is both the AFC South crown, which currently the Jaguars hold, and the Titans, but they both play each other. So eventually they're going to kind of run into their own head there from that perspective. So one will win the title. That's going to be week 18 when they play each other. And the loser will likely be out, which means it's ultimately going to come down to one of these AFC's teams. Is it the Jets? Is it the Miami Dolphins who have 2 and we'll get into that situation, or the New England Patriots? So 1 spot left. Those 3, do or die. Let's see what happens, and it's going to be pretty juicy. Without further ado, let's get him in. Again, he is my co-host every other Wednesday here on the Boy Green channel. You can also check him out again on his channel on the opposite weeks, or check him out all the time. That is the Buffalo Jet fan joining us right now here on the show. Buffalo, what's up, baby?
Boy Green, how's it going, man?
It's going excellent. I will say we're going to get into a little bit of the Derek Carr talk, but again, I mentioned it at the top of the show because it is trending. And by the way, good on Paul. Wrote a Derek Carr Raiders Jets trade article, just threw it out there this morning, and then boom, the big news hit. So again, I've got crystal ball, I've got timing on everything, and great timing that we have you on the show. So we'll dive into a little bit of that. Again, I want to keep that mainly for the offseason because we're in the thick of potentially ending the longest NFL playoff drought, and that's where much of our attention should be. But nonetheless, of course, we have to get into a little bit of that Derek Carr talk. But let's welcome in a few people into the chat, and that's going to kind of lead me into this Carr thing, because let's just address this. I see R&R who brings this up on the show, a hard pass on Carr. And he is one of, I don't know if I see any more in here, but just right off the top, I got a lot of flack. A lot of clapback on Derek Carr as a possibility for the Jets. Like, no thanks. We'll take who we got. And I'm like, Jet fans, can we look in the mirror for a second here? Because here's the stone cold facts. I mean, and these are stark. And I'm going to read them from my article today. Shameless self-plug here on the Derek Carr article. If Derek Carr got traded to the New York Jets this offseason, by the way, you guys could check out my full column on the Heavy on Jets page. Derek Carr would be the most decorated quarterback in Jets history, and it's not close. It's not close. Here are his numbers. Yeah. He has 35,222 passing yards in his career, 217 passing touchdowns, and a 64.6% completion percentage. That's his career numbers. Here is where those numbers would rank in Jets history. He would be the number 1 all-time leader in passing yards for the Jets by over 8,000 yards. In passing touchdowns, he would be number 1 by 47. His career completion percentage would place 3rd best all-time, only behind Brett Favre and Chad Pennington. So all these Jet fans that are high and mighty saying Derek Carr sucks, have you seen him this year? I'm like, have you seen him any of those other years? Because it would be obviously a massive upgrade. And now, with the news coming out earlier today, Derek Carr is being benched for the final 2 games because the Raiders don't want to risk him getting hurt, and they would owe him a bunch of guarantees. So it's better just to put him on ice because the Raiders are legitimately out of the playoff mix. But Buffalo, what do you make of all that? Especially Jet fans kind of rolling their eyes to Derek Carr. I'm like, excuse me?
Well, I think we have to realize that with any quarterback that by the way, just per the Athletic recently, Derek Carr not only is benched, but he's going to be not with the team the last 2 weeks to quote unquote avoid being a distraction. Translation, he's done in Vegas. He is either being traded or cut. We can be assured of that. Now, any quarterback that we're going to be pursuing in 2023, if it's not Mike White, they're going to be somebody that another team gave up on. There's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow are not free agents. Spoiler alert. So whether it's Jimmy G's injury history or Derek Carr, maybe just not quite being the level of quarterback that you'd like. Look, Derek Carr, there's a floor there. There's a floor of professional competence, and
Yeah.
he has taken a step back this year. I will say, if it was last year, I'd be all on Derek Carr, but I'm hoping that at, 30, 31 years old, that he has really taken a dump. The Vegas Raiders have basically been the Jets for the past even worse, honestly, like almost more of a dumpster fire than the Jets last decade. And he is the sole thing that has kept them relevant and watchable and taken them to the playoffs a couple of times. I mean, the 2021 roster that he dragged to the playoffs was far less talented than the roster the Jets have right now. He's never had a defense that's finished in the top 20.
Yeah.
Ever. He's got his head coach gets fired for like racist emails. His number one wide receiver is out of the league because he was involved in a tragic death. I mean, he has been through the ringer. And one thing I really like about Derek Carr too is his durability. I think if we're talking about between someone like him and Jimmy G, look, whether you like him or not, the Jets are going to kick the tires on this. There's going to be conversations at the round table of the Jets brass about Derek Carr. No doubt about it, as there should be. If Derek Carr gets signed by the Jets, I'm going to be stoked about it. The pros are he's Derek Carr. The cons are he's Derek Carr. I mean, but I think your point being a Jets fan is turning their nose up at somebody who, with their eyes closed, can throw for 4,000 yards, something we haven't done in like 50 years is kind of crazy.
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, on the Derek Carr thing, you are right. I believe I saw the stat correctly. He is set to miss his fourth game and what will be fifth game, obviously, with he being benched and he's leaving the team for the final 2 games of the season. That's I believe will be his fourth and fifth games missed in 9 years. I mean, that level of durability is insane. Obviously, these aren't injury-related reasons. So, the Derek Carr thing to me is highly intriguing. The other thing we should add is he has a full no-trade clause. So, really, we'll
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so here's an interesting nugget. So he's been a full-team guy, to your point. All of these tragedies and horrible situations, he stood in front of the podium, taking bullets, and he's done all the right things from that perspective. If he really wanted to on the no trade thing, he could say, Raiders, screw you, and he could essentially throw a tantrum and say, I'm not going to help you guys out at all, which will force them to cut him, and then the Jets wouldn't have to give up any assets potentially to trade. Again, I don't know if that's going to happen, but with him having a full no trade clause, that really adds a different level of spice to this thing and potentially affects the trade value of what he could actually go for with this contract structure. So either way, to your point, I think at a minimum, of course, the Jets would be naive not to at the very least kick the tires on this guy, especially with what he has. And I know he's been down this year. He leads the league in interceptions, but look at the breadth of his career. I'm not overreacting to 1 year personally, but I understand it with how some of these veteran trades have gone, like Russell Wilson, where people have lost their crap. So if you trade,
but I
Derek
think
Carr,
with Russell Wilson, he was leaving a Hall of Fame coach and going to Nathaniel Hackett. Whereas Derek Carr has never had anything good. So you know what I mean? I think
that's a good point.
It's kind of like when Patriots defensive backs go somewhere else and it's like they always get worse because they're coming from the best coach defense of modern football. I think does that make sense? How it wouldn't be like Robert Saleh might be the best head coach Derek Carr's ever had. You know what I mean?
That's probably true. And no. And again, you make valid points here, Buffalo. There's no question about it. The only reason I'm bringing it up is just on the greater sense of, Colts with Matt Ryan, of acquiring this veteran quarterback that you think,
Carson
thank God,
Wentz.
we're getting a guy who's Carson Wentz, another good example. You've got a really good floor. So, at least we have this. Like Russell Wilson, he's a Super Bowl champion. All these other, at least you're going to get this. And then, whoa, the bottom fell out. Matt Ryan, whoa, the bottom fell out. Again, the thing I would feel good about is Derek Carr is younger than both of those guys. Derek Carr's 31, about to be 32. So I just feel better about that sense. But again, there's a lot to obviously dive into there on a greater sense. I see maybe one more in here before we get to all the craziness of this week. John O'Sullivan on our YouTube channel, which, by the way, everybody, again, make sure you check out the Buffalo Jet Fan. His YouTube channel is down below. Subscribe. Get that, man. He's getting closer and closer to 10K, baby, on YouTube. So jump on that train if you can. But I'll answer this, and then I'll answer any questions you guys have, of course, on the show. But then we'll get more into this week and the do or die in Seattle, and again, the playoffs and everything. We'll have plenty of time for all this quarterback discussion. I got a few announcements. We'll make those later in the show on a lot of this stuff. But John O'Sullivan, Boy Green, can you rank your quarterback wish list for the Jets in 2023? Who are your top picks? And Buffalo, I'll let you get to jump in here as well. I'm going to be honest, and this apparently is going to ruffle a lot of Jet fans' feathers. Derek Carr is high on the list. I think depending on how the things go, I've been told by a few capologists, which again is above my pay grade, that there is an interesting out in the Aaron Rodgers deal that on the surface it looks crazy with the $100 million in dead cap and all these other things. Apparently, there is a weird thing that I don't understand. I will bring a cap person on to explain it this offseason. But long story short, the layman's term is there's a loophole to get him out of Green Bay where it's feasible to make a trade happen. And I will believe the cap experts for that. So Aaron Rodgers, despite what we've seen this year, he was a back-to-back NFL MVP. I don't know. Aaron Rodgers, to me, depending on a trade price, would be very interesting. Derek Carr would be very interesting. I know a guy that is probably number one on everyone's list is Jimmy Garoppolo. He scares the shit out of me. I'm going to be honest. He's been healthy only one time his entire career through a full season. Of course, the 49ers went to the Super Bowl that year in 2019, which shows you what's possible. But to me, I am so afraid of giving him a 3-year deal where he gets paid $30 million a year, $90 million, the Kirk Cousins deal. And then he gets hurt, and we're just stuck back in the same exact situation. So honestly, that scares the crap out of me. But how couldn't you be excited if Jimmy G comes in or some of these other guys I mentioned? But Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, and Mike White, depending on how he performs these 2 games, could be up there as well. But I think they have to be aggressive in the quarterback market. Those are the realistic names that come to mind. Buffalo, any other ones that jump out to you?
Yeah, I kind of break it into like tiers of quarterback more than just like a ranking. I think it kind of makes sense. And for me, like there's the dream tier of like Lamar Jackson, Aaron Rodgers. I don't think those are happening. But you make a phone call, of course. And then there's kind of the Jimmy G, Derek Carr. I think they're kind of together in a tier where they'd be a significant upgrade. They're both probably can give you at any point in time 12th to 18th in the league quarterback play. With Jimmy G, the talent I love, the system fit I love, but since when do injury-prone guys come to the Jets and then get healthy? You know what I mean? That's the one thing with Jimmy G. Like, yeah, he'd be great for the 7 games we'd have him here. So with Jimmy G, it would have to be a 1-year deal for me. I can't get married to Jimmy G. Now with Mike White, as it stands right now, I got to be honest, and it's a bummer because I was all aboard like the Mike White hype train. Wow, this is awesome. Look what this kid's doing. He's the best quarterback on the roster, a practice squad guy. And then Jets fans went and lapped me. And all of a sudden, he's the savior of the franchise. And now I got to be like, Mr. No Fun. With the information we have right now, there is no way that Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas are putting all their eggs in a Mike White basket heading into next year. Now, he's had a big opportunity in front of him. If he balls out and they beat Seattle, if he balls out and they beat Miami, and then he plays well in a playoff game, then we're talking, and he doesn't leave any of those games with injuries at all, then we're talking.
Another big factor. Yeah.
And I know, and I'm not calling him injury prone. The dude's tough as nails, but the fact that he's left almost half the games he's played with injury, it'd be insane to think that that's not going to be part of the decision that they make. So that's the best case scenario, is that Mike White freaking balls out, and then we have a guy who's here, who's relatively affordable, who's still young. But if that doesn't happen, and the dream scenarios of Lamar and Aaron Rodgers don't happen, I think Derek Carr might be that next guy up. Or maybe if they're feeling kind of lukewarm on Mike White, you bring in like a Minshew level guy to compete with him. We'll see. The thing is, if they do go a Derek Carr, they trade for him and pay him $35 million, Mike White's not back, because Mike White's going to command some money somewhere else. Zach Wilson's getting $11 million. If you add that all up, you'd be paying like Mahomes money for your quarterback room. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of debates all off season about quarterback.
And by the way, quick nugget on that, it's going to be interesting in terms of timing is critically important, because you can't have like the Alex Smith trade way back in the day where it was agreed to a month in advance. Now, the new league year doesn't kick off till the middle of March, so technically trades can't be official till then. So what do the Jets do? Because they're going to have months to talk to Mike White before any team does. They can sign him to the dotted line anytime they want from now till March. So again, timing will be important, because I'm with you in the same boat. There's no way, if you're Joe Douglas, really, no matter what Mike White does, outside of winning the Super Bowl. Okay, I guess that's a possibility. If he just takes a team and wins the Super Bowl, then okay. If he's the only main egg in your basket, I think you can rationalize that. But outside of that possibility, I think really when you look at yourself, there's no way that you go in with Mike White with his injury history, which is just factual. I know you were trying to, walk on eggshells there with the durability, but in all the
people
games
getting their feelings over that, it's just a fact.
It is. I think he's played 6 games, and I think only 2 of them he's been start to finish. I think Joe Caparoso tweeted that out, which is wild to say out loud. So again, the fact of the matter is that there's no way he could be your only basket. But then it's complicated because how much do you pay Mike White to Zach Wilson to having a legitimate other guy? So there's a lot of questions there. But John, we'll get more into this during the offseason. I'm seeing a couple more super chats get in, so we'll get to those first. Joe S., if Mike LaFleur gets fired, who do you want to replace him? I'll say this, Joe S. And by the way, thank you so much for the super chat. I think there is a -% chance that Mike LaFleur gets fired personally for 2 reasons. First off, again, I think there's been more good than bad. And really, when you look at it on a grander scale, a point that I've ignored this entire time that you simply can't ignore anymore is other quarterbacks have looked great. Zach Wilson has looked terrible. Now, sometimes it's not that simplistic, but with this much of a sample size of different guys coming in and having success, I can only say, wow, man, what is Mike LaFleur working with here? Now, people can argue that Mike LaFleur should have schemed it up better for Zach Wilson to maximize his talents. That's what you're supposed to do with the quarterback. But to me, I think there's been too much success elsewhere that wouldn't. And number 2, let's address the elephant in the room, the familial connection. Robert Saleh is going to give Mike LaFleur every chance to fight out, even if he was really bad this year, because the Matt LaFleur best friend, Mike LaFleur, they all grew up together. There's no way he's going to dump him early. And again, early would be we're in his 2nd season and he's shown some promise. So to me, I think there's a 0% chance. If they did, I think the safest thing would be promoting from within, and Rob Calabrese would be your new offense coordinator. Now, how sexy is that to the world? I don't know, but that's just my take. Any quick thoughts, Buffalo?
Well, with Mike LaFleur, normally with certain opinions on players or coaches, I have a pretty ardent take. With Mike LaFleur, I don't know. It's really hard to grade an offensive coordinator when you, for the majority of the games, we've had maybe the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't want to make it a pile on Zach Wilson thing, but if we're being honest, the totality of his tenure with the Jets, he's had bottom 5 quarterback play. There's things situationally, 3rd and short, red zone, that drive me crazy. But when you roll back the film, dudes are wide ass open all the time. So if we bring in if we bring in Derek Carr and Derek Carr looks like Zach Wilson, then yeah, fire Mike LaFleur. But I think this whole coaching staff is going to get a 3rd year almost no matter what. Outside the big Saleh, Ulbrich, and LaFleur, the big 3 will be back next year almost assuredly, in my opinion.
Again, I am completely in the same boat. Another YouTube super chat coming in here from Nose Kills. I love it. I don't think we got $5. I think we got £5 here. If my interpretation of this currency is coming in, and love it, phenomenal. Okay. I'd be okay with Brady or Rodgers, but there's a risk in getting a quarterback that watches game tape, and I mean actual VHS. That's funny. Yeah, I would say this. I know a lot of. Here's the thing that I think is an overall message we can all take in life, and it's more than just quarterback. You can't be afraid of if something burned you in your past, you have something that burned you. You can't be afraid to dip your toe back into that water again. And what keeps coming up with the Brady Rodgers thing or quarterbacks of that range is people say, well, the Brett Favre thing didn't really work out, which, by the way, they were 8-3. And if he would have just told the team about his bicep injury, maybe Kellen Clemens does better than 1-4 down the stretch and they make the playoffs. But that's neither here nor there. You can't be afraid because one veteran 15 years ago, burned you when you got it means every other veteran can never come in a completely different situation, different coaching staff. So not that you're saying that, no skills, but just kind of in a general sense, that's a criticism I've heard about pursuing either Rodgers or Brady. And I think to me, that's freaking wild. I'd be open to both Brady and Rodgers for that matter. I don't know if Brady would ever come because of the hatred with Bill Belichick, and he's probably carried that. Although I would just try to sell him on giving it to New England, twice, revenge. Hey, give it to Belichick and you got a really talented team here. And hopefully he buys it. And then the Rodgers thing would be trade based. I don't know how they figure all those details out, but if anyone could, it'd be the LaFleur brothers with one another. But a lot of ageism here I'm seeing Buffalo. Any do you like either?
Brady. Oh God, that would be
I don't even know if my brain could compute press conference. Of course, by the way, it's not touching 12, so he's got to figure out a new number.
Yeah,
but holding up whatever jersey I see Brady, I don't think my brain, there'd be spazzing out going on. I think both of those names are probably very unrealistic that either of them end up Jets quarterbacks, but both of them are very durable. Like that's the thing. So whether you're 40 or whether you're 27, Brady is I'd have more faith in Brady or Rodgers lasting a full 17 than Jimmy G. So just get somebody durable, get an upgrade.
Hey, with Rodgers, I like the cap. It's crazy. It's like a $59 million cap hit in 2 years. But I think anyone who immediately pushes away, no, I don't want Aaron Rodgers, is out of their freaking mind. Like make a
I
call
couldn't.
and see what's up.
100%. Guys, he's the back-to-back MVP. And did you see, and I know me and Buffalo both tweeted about it, so I know we both saw it, that friggin' throw against the
Crazy.
Dolphins on Christmas where he had no room and he just kind of did this like side flick, Phillip Rivers style, but like compact throw, and it just dropped in a bucket to Mercedes Lewis. My jaw was on the floor and I was searching for it. It was just I went no flipping way. When he threw it, I'm like, get out of here. And then Mercedes Lewis caught it. It was just in the perfect spot. I'm like, holy shit, this guy still has it. I mean, come on.
Garrett
And
Wilson is
again,
immediately a top 5 receiver. The
oh
second
my
Aaron
God.
Rodgers is a Jet.
That's my consistent message when I saw Aaron Rodgers throw the ball around. Again, I know he wasn't perfect. He had a couple of dumb YOLO balls, and there was a lot of things in that game. But I immediately, when I see competent quarterback play, and then I look back at Zach Wilson's inability to get Garrett Wilson the football, I'm like, and the numbers that all Garrett Wilson has right now, he is going to get the 1,000 yards on Sunday and everything else. But I still say to myself, like, holy crap. Like, Garrett Wilson is your Justin Jefferson. He's your Jamar Chase. Like, every play, the opponent has to go, oh, my God, where the frick is Garrett Wilson? Like, but with Zach Wilson, they haven't had to. So, like, he has just, like, disappeared and he's been invisible. And that's the wildest thing in history. Like, he needs to be a gosh darn factor, either by decoy or actuality of forcing him the ball on a play-to-play basis. So that's a thing to me that really drives this veteran quarterback thing, and no more guessing game. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, whatever dream you have, anyone that could just get the football from point A to point B, and I don't care how they do it. All of a sudden, Garrett Wilson stock rises. Elijah Moore stock rises. The tight ends, like I think CJ Uzomah has showed a little chutzpah, but like he hasn't gotten the ball consistently in those situations. That's been very limited. Or Conklin, I know he's been at points underwhelming this year, but if you look at a lot of those things, I go, man, Brees Hall, like, damn, man, if you get a guy in here, like they can do some things.
Well, you see,
But
and
with
I
that
don't want to
being,
belabor the point
yeah,
too much, but I
yeah,
think it goes on exactly what you're saying. And I had the same thought watching the Aaron Rodgers, and I'm watching Aaron Rodgers, and that roster that he has with the Packers now is significantly worse than what the Jets have.
of
Like
course.
Christian Watson is an athletic stud, but if you put Christian Watson with the quarterback play, the Jet and Flacco in there too, I'm not pretending I'm
Yeah,
not pretending Mike White is Aaron Rodgers either. Like collectively, they haven't had an
right.
established quarterback, and so it's kind of like, okay, when you're the Jets, if you don't have that quarterback, and then okay, you're not paying them a lot of money, and then you have to build
Mm-hmm.
up the roster, and everything has to kind of go right around the quarterback. Whereas if the Packers are the opposite. They don't really have much else. They're salary cap hell. They have injuries too, but they just have the quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, who's 39 and he has a broken thumb. And there's more of a percent chance that the Packers make the damn playoffs than we do. So to me, I say write the check, eat it. And then you know what? You use Joe Douglas, those third, fourth round picks on Max Mitchell's and Michael Clemens, and you supplement the rest of your roster that way. And you just, and you have a fighting chance. When you're going up against Josh Allen twice a year, you have a puncher's chance because you have a guy like that.
Again, we're speaking with the Buffalo Jet fan. Again, this is the Boy Green and Buffalo show. Make sure you like the video, hit subscribe down below, everybody. It is, of course, Jet Seattle week. We're going to get into that here in just a minute. And also, if you guys would like, the feature is available on YouTube. The YouTube Super Chat, you could throw a little change in our tin cup. We'll give you a nice highlight, a nice shout out on the show, and it helps keep the cogs moving. Like I said, we also have some special announcements at the end of the show to get to. But let's get to Mike White. He was medically cleared earlier this week. He will start against the Seattle Seahawks. Joe Flacco will be the backup. Zach Wilson is off to the dungeon, as Robert Saleh put it. So lock the key and throw it away. He's basically out for the rest of the year outside of injury, according to Saleh. And then there's a chance for Chris Grevler package. But I ask you this about Mike White as we head into the Seattle game. This is do or die. We mentioned at the top of the show. If the Jets lose, they're eliminated from the playoffs. There's nothing else to it. If they win, of course, they keep everything alive and they have a chance. They need New England to lose one of their final two. We'll also get into that storyline in just a minute. Does reinserting Mike White into the lineup fix everything? Because they've had offensive line issues. They've had running game issues. And defensively, again, I don't want to kill them too bad because, again, overall in the grand scheme, they've done very well. But even the defense has had a lapse here or there. Is Mike White getting plugged in this week suddenly going to fix all of the Jets' issues during this 4-game losing streak and losers of 6 of the last 8?
No. And I am far from a Zach Wilson truther, but I do think there have been moments during this 4-game losing streak where Zach Wilson has been a comfortable scapegoat for like the whole team kind of falling apart. But to use an analogy, like the Jets they're a car, right? The windshield wipers are getting squeaky. The radio is kind of not what it used to be. The belt's kind of screeching, but they had no engine. And now, you know what? You have a damn engine. And all those other problems can kind of be managed and duct tape and patched up if you have a damn engine. They have that in Mike White. I don't know about 2023. I'm not saying Mike White's Tom Brady, but I'm saying Mike White is the best quarterback the Jets have had this year. He's probably the best quarterback the Jets have had since Ryan Fitzpatrick, if we're being honest. And he can match. Is he better than Geno Smith or Tua? I can't look at you with a straight face and say that with what those men have done this year. But can he go punch for punch with either of them on any given Sunday, these next 2 Sundays, and give us a chance to win the game? Yes, he can. I think the defense, with something to fight for, can buckle down. My biggest concern, my question mark of this team is the offensive line, and specifically, not even the pass pro. Like, the run game has been eviscerated. We didn't even have a yard before contact against the Detroit Lions. Then Sam Darnold and company ran for 250 yards against the Lions in a half.
Brutal.
And then Chris Streveler has been the best running back on the team like the past 3 weeks. So you have to keep a Streveler package on ice. And I'm giving the regular offense like a quarter. And if we still can't run the ball, if we still can't pick up third and shorts, then I'm putting Streveler in there. So to me, I trust the defense. I trust the coaches to figure this out. I do not trust this offensive line until proven otherwise.
Yeah, I don't either, for that matter. We have to see. Although there is weird analytics. Shout out to both Zach Rosenblatt and True Media for this. And it sounds weird because I think sometimes people say this, but they don't really mean this. Like, wow, the players play differently depending on who the quarterback is. Like, the offensive line does this with Zach Wilson. The offensive line does this with Mike White. But actually, the analytics actually say that the offensive line has performed better with Mike White. Now, is it simply because of the player, or is it because Mike White throws the ball a lot faster, so by virtue they're protecting less or things of that nature? That's up for everyone else to decide on some of the numbers, but it is an interesting thought. To be honest, I have no shame. The Chris Streveler package, I'm fully installed with making that a regular part of the offense. Now, I'm not saying Jaguars game where he's in the entire drive. That's wild. But on all third and fourth situations based on the history of Mike LaFleur, I am fully all on board with Chris Streveler coming in and having an RPO read. And you got to believe in him enough to make that decision based on the defensive end, if he's crashing in or if he's keeping out. And then, boom, you should be able to convert that 9 times out of 10. And if really you're fearful of Mike White's health, even putting in Chris Streveler, who's a big, thick dude, like putting him in on the QB sneaks if you don't even want to risk Mike White, who's got a big frame, but like the durability stuff, then put freaking Chris Streveler. The Browns have no problem with that. They did that with Jacoby Brissett all the time on QB sneaks, and their success rate is incredibly high. So I get there's roster gymnastics. I get there's a lot to it, as Saleh kind of indicated, and seemingly, he's leaning. Maybe it's just gamesmanship. That'd be a weird thing for gamesmanship, but he seemed to be leaning that they would not be able to get Streveler in for the Seattle game because of all these injuries and pieces moving up and down. But to me, 100%, I'm keeping that Streveler package moving forward from that standpoint. Let's get to this, Buffalo, with what needs to happen. The Jets need to win there too. At Seattle, at Miami, and New England has to lose one. Again, we'll get into the Miami thing in a second with all of that's going on and how that drastically affects the Jets. We talk about what needs to happen for this or that, but really the hardest thing that needs to happen is the thing I think we overlook the most: winning the games that the Jets have in front of them, because if they don't do that, they're eliminated and it's over. They've lost 4 in a row. They've lost 6 of the last 8. Is Seattle struggling? Yes, they've lost 5 of 6. And at home, they're 3 and 4. So the home field advantage isn't what it normally is. It's still a crazy hostile place to play in at Lumen Field. But I think that's a thing everyone's overlooking. I'm not saying that they're not going to win or they are going to win. I'm just going to say that they need to just find a way to win. They found ways to win at the beginning of the year in these fourth quarter games. Now all of a sudden they've lost that magic. How do they get it back? I think that's a big key in this Seattle game, where Seattle is playing for their own playoff lives on their side.
Yeah, it's a really interesting game, and I think it's kind of two teams that are on a similar trajectory, but for a lot of different reasons. I'm looking forward to this one. I'm kind of glad I'm glad to get away from MetLife for a little bit.
Yeah,
Paul. I don't know about you, and especially I'm sure Zach Wilson would be too if he was playing. But my main thing when I'm looking at at this game. There's lots of elements to it. There's the revenge Geno game. There's the revenge Pete Carroll game. How about DJ Reed? But I think
George Fant. Yeah, we got a lot of them.
There we go. To me, they have the 31st ranked rushing defense in the NFL. And to me, it's like that is going to be right away. Can we expose that? I don't know if you noticed this about the Jets, Paul, but I can tell if we're going to decide that we're going to be able to run the football pretty damn quick into a football game. Like when that first Michael Carter toss goes out to the left and it's a loss of 2.
Let's get rid of the sweeps in general. These 4 or 5 yard sweep losses. So like the Jets are shooting themselves in the foot with penalties. And then they're doing this stupid sweep.
Too much
that, by the way,
stuff.
You don't have Breece Hall anymore. So they're doing a sweep, they lose 5. So it's 5 yard penalty, they lose 5. All of a sudden they're like, oh, holy shit, it's 2nd and 20. What happened?
All Thursday night, I felt like
out.
I was looking up there and like we were moving backwards. And some of it wasn't because of Zach Wilson. Now, he couldn't propel us forwards when we moved, but George Fant, a false start. Corey did. And that's the thing about this run game. I totally agree because, and especially a lot of the shotgun runs, you hand it off to Michael Carter, but he's getting the ball delayed 4 yards behind line of scrimmage. So he gets tackled. It's like a loss of 3, or the Berrios, he gets an end around. He gets tackled. It's a loss. If you just do a halfback, just trap or wham or dive to Bam Knight, like worst case scenario, he gains a yard. You know what I mean? And then it's 2nd and 9 and not 2nd and 14. And that kind of crap matters in the NFL. So if I did have one criticism of Michael LaFleur, it might be that. I also would like to see them take more. I've been saying this for a long time, and we actually did it for a half against the Detroit Lions, and we looked pretty good. More shots past the sticks on first down. I think it's a lot of a run for 4 yards and then a little Berrios orbit motion screen for 3 yards, and it's 3rd down and 3. And it's like, okay, great, it's 3rd down and manageable, but now we have to convert like 3-4 third downs to get a touchdown. That's not, you got to go for some explosives, and I want to see us do that, like with those play actions on early downs that we did with Zach Wilson against Detroit. I want to see some of those too. And then another thing, Paul Boy Green, that's kind of gone by the wayside is the Jets had not a good, but a great special teams for a while. And they have fallen apart completely. Zerloin, whatever, he missed the long field goal, that happens. Braden Mann has started to regress. And Braxton Berrios, who was our Pro Bowl kick returner, he's had iffy decisions as a punt returner. I can't remember the last time he brought a kick like back past the 30. He had that wonky decision.
How did he become a Pro Bowl alternate this year, by the way? How'd that happen?
It just shows that Jets Twitter is a powerful animal.
Sure.
But yeah, man, we all facets of this team have to be better. And I'm sorry, on Thursday night, I know, look, the biggest mismatch on the field on Thursday night was Trevor Lawrence versus Zach Wilson. The second biggest was Doug Peterson and Robert Saleh. We got dog walked. We got smoked on every level. So we got to find that team that was 6-3, man. We got to find them. They're still in there somewhere, Paul. I believe it.
I do as well. Let's get another one in here because it's a topic, of course, we have to cover. We're talking about all those revenge angles. Trin the Great joining us on YouTube Super Chat. By the way, thank you so much, pal, for investing in the show. We appreciate you. Key to beating Seattle, punch Geno in the chin. I see what you did there, Trin. Yes. The one Geno Smith 7 years ago gets
who's the guy? IK and
Kempali. That's right. Who, by the way, is like a real estate guy now. I would hate to get him upset. He would probably pressure me into a very lucrative housing deal.
Yeah.
So I believe he is a real estate agent in Texas. The only reason we know that is because we obviously get these anniversaries all the time. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, and ESPN reached out to him and said, "Hey, IK, we're doing a story. Do you want to talk?" And he's like, he had some very angry response and said, "Why do we keep bringing this up?" So no comment, I guess, from IK on that. But I do want to launch into a larger conversation with Geno, which is kind of wild. That, again, that could be the death nail for most people's NFL careers. It's over like whatever it was, $600, whatever he didn't pay for it. Geno obviously had the money. You should have just paid for it. It would have been done and over, and who knows what would have happened in that 2015 year anyway. But he gets punched, jaw breaks. Fitzpatrick's doing this magical run, so Geno never sees the field again. And then he just is a backup clipboard holder with the Giants with Eli Manning. He ends up ending his Iron Man streak. He's there with the Chargers with Phillip Rivers. Then he's with the Seahawks for a billion years, and then he gets his chance. Here are Geno Smith's numbers this year, folks. And, man, I knew these numbers before I'm even about to read them now, but they're still stunning. Geno Smith has a 71% completion percentage this year. He's thrown for 3,800 yards, nearly 3,900. He has 27 touchdowns to 9 picks. That is a 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. Holy blank. I mean, he's been spectacular. And even beyond the numbers, just seeing a bunch of Seahawks games this year, he's just had money throws where I'm like, holy crap. Only two, it's not Patrick Mahomes across the field, but he's just had like these tight throws. You're like, man, that's a great throw. Like, wow, that's a good throw. Again, It's not always SportsCenter top 10, but Geno Smith has just delivered, and it's been magical. Obviously, the overall team has struggled greatly, and that has included some Geno Smith turnovers in here. But man, I'm just gonna be honest, Buffalo. There's not even a question here. I'm just like speaking this Geno Smith topic. Holy crap! I've been so stunned with how great he's been because I thought the Seahawks were going to have the number 1 overall pick. I was rooting for Geno, and I will be wearing my Jets Geno Smith jersey on Sunday as some ode to Geno, and also to get some more use out of it. To be honest with you, but to like, wow, I am just stunned by the success Geno has had. To be honest with you.
Yeah, happy for him. It's easy to be happy for him because it's been so long and he's on an NFC team. Right. It's not like he's killing it with the Dolphins. Well, hey, I mean, he's a free agent. Do you kick the tires on a Geno Smith reunion?
Is that serious? Are you really interested or no?
And
by the way, would he? Would he come
That's
back?
Interesting. That's interesting. If I'm being honest, like I don't know if it's the PTSD Jets fan in me. I feel like it wouldn't. There's a part of me just feels like it wouldn't work. But if you're looking at the landscape of quarterbacks who are available, and he's still relatively young for a quarterback, he's been durable this year. He's played really well, but
32. He's 32. Yep.
Okay, so maybe on a short-term deal, and you don't have to trade for him, and you could probably get him a little cheaper than you could at Derek Carr. But it's like it's hard to unsee looking at the last quarterback who left Pete Carroll and went somewhere else. And with Geno, it's not like he never played anywhere else. He got a shot with the Giants briefly, and he kind of looked like Geno Smith on the Jets. So just a 1 year, you're happy for Geno, but you feel like it might be a one-hit wonder. You might want to get somebody with a little bit more of a resume, but it's another name that you definitely throw in the hat for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Again, I think there is going to be a little PTSD, as you put it, as an example of like Jets. It's almost like the people, I've gotten a few texts about this, like Sam Darnold. Ooh, Sam Darnold's a free agent.
Oh no,
look at him. And
I'm
like,
totally
come on.
out on.
By the way, I am totally out as well. And there's no way. Joe Douglas has said no thanks and traded him away and drafted a new guy. There's no way you could then bring that guy back. There's no.
And he hasn't been good. I don't know what we're watching.
Right. It's cool. It's cool to see that the Carolina Panthers legitimately have a real path to the NFC South title, which, by the way, is freaking bonkers midway through firing a head coach and bringing Sam Darnold back from the grave. So it's cool from that standpoint for him, but it's not like he's been Patrick Mahomes lighting it up. But in a similar sense, like I think for me, I really always loved Geno. I love that. I remember that first game against Tampa where he gets he's riding the sideline, gets the Levante David, extra 15 yards from, roughing, unnecessary roughness, whatever it was, and got him into field goal range and they win the game. Like I've got a lot of really good Geno Smith, the Monday Night Football, Atlanta Falcons. Like there's some good Geno Smith memories in my head. I know overall, when you look at the turnovers and everything else, it wasn't great. But, like, how could you not, especially with Robert Saleh, like, a couple of weeks ago, bringing him up, like, randomly saying, hey, look at the development he had. Look at him bounce it back. And I just, like, interesting. It's not even like, Jet Seattle. Of course, Robert Saleh was asked about Geno Smith this week and will continue to be. But when he randomly brought it up a bunch of weeks ago, I said, is that a guy that he would look at? Seattle, he's got a lot of friends in Seattle. Again, that'd be interesting. Again, would Geno want to? Would there be this, what's the letter? I wrote a letter, but they didn't write back or whatever the line is. But, there could be a sense of a redemption going back and being the guy who was always supposed to be. LeBron coming home, it's basically the same thing. So, there could be something there. So, Geno, that will be an interesting story. Pete Carroll, by the way, I don't know, for our older Jet fans, he was here in 94. He was also here the previous 3 years as well. He was a defense coordinator from 90 to 93, got elevated to head coach in 94. And unfortunately, I'm sure, Buffalo, you remember this, and so do all our Jet fans. The Jets were 6-5. Things are looking pretty good with Pete Carroll. And then that was the fake spike game. The Jets lose that game. They drop to 6-6, and they lose every game the rest of the year. The fake spike, Dan Marino, They finish 6-10. Pete Carroll gets fired, and then he ends up working out for Pete Carroll. He gets a decade at USC. Then he's in Seattle, wins the Super Bowl, should have won 2 back-to-back. So everything ends up working out for Pete Carroll. But there's a lot of juicy revenge angles. I'm going to be honest. This is a game I've had circle since before the year. No Jamal Adams, obviously, with him out for the year. But there's a lot of juicy here in an AFC-NFC battle, obviously, with all the playoff implications and everything on the line.
Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed versus DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett is a pretty damn good match.
Yeah.
And Garrett Wilson is gonna smoke. Give me Tariq Woolen. If he's really that dude, then put him on an island against Garrett Wilson and let's go.
I so want to see it because and Zach Rosenblatt, who we also had on the show this week, Flex, he was on the Athletics version of the Seattle podcast. It's called Cover 2 Man or Seattle Cover 2 Man or something. And he was on that and he said no corner's been able to shut down Garrett Wilson all year. Now there's been quarterbacks who haven't been able to get him the ball, but that's ineptitude at the Jets quarterback position. No one can cover him because of his unique ability to get off the line of scrimmage and just make things happen and bouncing around. So I want to see. I don't know how they run their system in Seattle. I imagine it's still the Richard Sherman stuff of sides. But either way, I'd be very intrigued to see Tariq Woolen on Garrett Wilson. Hopefully puts him in a blender and everyone goes maybe Sauce is really the defensive rookie year and maybe Garrett Wilson's actually the offensive rookie year. I just saw some of the guys he's competing with against. The Brock Purdy thing is stupid, so stop. He's played 3 games, so that's the stupidest thing in history. Take him off the board. Christian Watson, sure, he's got a lot of touchdowns, but those are fluky. Look at all the other statistics. He's nowhere close to Garrett Wilson. Remove him off the board. Really, if you want to boil it down, it's Ken Walker versus Garrett Wilson, and Ken Walker's got 9 touchdowns, so Garrett Wilson doesn't sniff that. But Garrett Wilson has more receiving yards than he does and more receptions, but obviously it's running back versus wide receiver. I don't know. To me, I think it's clearly Garrett Wilson, but there is a lot of youth and excitement in this game for sure there, Buffalo. So very exciting. Very exciting. I do hope he puts him in a blender, though. That would be phenomenal. That'd be phenomenal. I'm seeing Jay Spector, no Lockett. Actually, I believe Lockett is playing from everything I'm hearing. We will see. He was in practice and catching. Again, apparently he's got a surgically repaired hand that's got stitches in it, and he was catching football. So I don't know how effective he's going to be, but he apparently was good at practice. So it looked bad earlier in the week, and it's looked good today on Wednesday. So that's something to keep an eye out for. I see we have another YouTube super chat in here. Joe S., which, by the way, thank you. The biggest mistake Woody made was firing Mangini. We don't have to go too far back in the time machine here, Buffalo, but if you all remember that Mangini season was the Brett Favre year. Remember they start 8-3, and they it's random just bringing this up, but I appreciate the super chat, so of course we'll talk about it. It is funny though. That was the 2008 year. Brett Favre, they started 8-3. They of course collapsed. They're like, you know what? Screw you, Mangini. Although they build obviously a really great team. Rex Ryan comes in, rides it to 2 AFC Championship games plus everything else they were able to do. So I don't know. I don't know if it was a mistake. They went to back-to-back AFC Championship games. So, ended up he got 3 years, and the 2006 I went to the playoffs. I remember they lost to Patriots at Spygate. 2007 they missed it, and then 2008 they were supposed to go on this magical run. It didn't. So 2 out of 3 years were winning seasons. I don't know. Do you have a strong take on this, Buffalo? What is that? Nearly 20 years later.
No, I like Mangini. I think he's probably a classic guy who is probably best suited as a defensive coordinator for his career in the NFL. He's a really good analyst. I think he's super smart. I like what he has to say. Obviously, if he had a hand in some of the personnel decisions, those rosters that were handed to Rex were fully loaded. But I think I'd be lying to tell you if we had Mangini instead of Rex that we would have gone further than the AFC Championship games. I don't have any evidence for that. Obviously, when he went to Cleveland, I don't think he ever even sniffed the playoffs or anything in his couple of years there. So I don't have a super strong opinion on the man genius, one way or the other.
Although I will say you made a beautiful point there, whether you knew it or not, by going to Cleveland, the Jets traded from 17-5 to take Mark Sanchez in that. So they will talk about there has to be some sort of handshake thing. They fire his ass, say, Mangini, you get your ass out of here. He's like, all right, I guess I'll go to Cleveland and be the head coach. And then a couple months later, they're like, hey, Mangini, trade? And then they're like, all right, I guess. And by the way, the trade, that benefited the Jets, obviously, is because they had a lot of players, Kenyon Coleman, Abram Elam, Brett Ratliff, the guy I thought was the Jets quarterback for 5 seconds. All those guys, they were able to sell them back down the river to Eric Mangini because they were his guys. So it lessened the trade package. Jumping from 17 to 5 should have been this monster, offer, but it was a first, second, and a bunch of players just heading over. So the Jets got Mark Sanchez, who again went back-to-back AFC Championship games and most road playoff wins in Jets history and all that other stuff. So without Mangini, maybe that never happens. And what do you take at 17? Hakeem Nicks? Josh Freeman, and now we're going with deep cuts here. I mean, what happens? Brett Favre obviously doesn't come back, so man, who knows what could have happened? So maybe the Mangini firing actually ended up working out for everybody. So there you go, full circle. Who would have thought we'd get a Mangini question here on December 28th at 9:54 p.m. Buffalo?
Hey, and that's Joe. And Joe is a cool guy. What's up, Joe? What's going on, buddy?
I love Joe. Yeah, so thank you so much for the YouTube super chats there, my friend. Let's circle back. Let's get this in as well. And also, guys, continue to throw your comments in. YouTube super chats, of course, are always loved.
And smash also the like button.
Subscribe. Yes, please do smash that like button. That's the free way. There's 148, 150 people. The number keeps moving of people that are in here right now. That's the free way all of you can contribute. If you love the show, even if you hate the show, I'm going to be honest. I don't care. Love, hate, anywhere in between. Just hit that gosh darn like button. Maybe it's great for the brand, great for the program, and helps all our numbers. So I would love that. Let's get into, so the Jets need to handle their own business. Obviously, we talked about the Seattle game. Again, Seattle is slumping. Miami, for that matter, is also slumping because they play in the final game of the season. But the fact of the matter is they just need to win their games. But the other thing they need, if the Jets went out and the Patriots went out, it doesn't matter what the Jets do. They're eliminated by virtue of that because of the sweep. Thank you, New England, for that. So the Jets need New England to lose once in their final 2 weeks. They play the Dolphins, and then they're at Buffalo, which I think Buffalo is going to be playing for the number 1 seed. I think that will take care of the business. But I'd love the drama just being over of immediately New England losing, and then, we just know what has to happen. However, New England is playing Miami, and Tua has a concussion. Once again, he's entered the concussion protocol. He's already been officially ruled out. And there was talk earlier, Buffalo, this is very serious. I'm not joking anymore. This is completely serious, that there's a thought Tua could retire with this many concussions in a short period of time. I've heard that chatter from big name NFL people suggesting that could be possible, let alone not playing again this season, but potentially retiring, which is wild because they said there was open conversation earlier. Man, it looks like the Dolphins could be in the Derek Carr trade market if Tua retires. I'm just like, wow, we went from surprise to a concussion to all of a sudden, man, this guy could retire so quickly. And now Jet fans will have to rely upon one former Jets quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, to take care of New England to get them in a position, which is kind of a wild turn of events.
Yeah, and I think that the NFL has to look. Obviously, neither of us are doctors. We just play them on TV. But there are numerous doctors, including the guy, the famous one played by Will Smith in the movie Concussion, said Tua should retire. Yes, and numerous others. RG3 saying he should retire. Emmanuel Acho, even though who cares what he has to say. But I think the NFL has to do something to where the protocols become different, and there's mandatory longer missed time if you have multiple concussions in the same season, because that's what all the doctors will tell you. If you get a concussion today, and then 3 years from now, and then 2 years later, and then I get a concussion this month, next month, and the month after, that it is exponentially more dangerous to your long-term health, those when you get them close to each other like Tua has. And I think if you get a second concussion, you got to go on 4-week IR. And if you get a third one, you probably shouldn't play the rest of the year. Maybe even not the rest of the next year. It's going to be tough. And it sucks because especially when it's quarterback and it's taking away from the game. But this is the biggest problem the NFL has. They're top dog. They do everything better than every other league. Their draft alone is bigger. I look forward to the NFL draft more than I do the NBA finals. But this is the biggest thing. This is the ugly underbelly. And, when you see people like Demaryius Thomas passing away in his early 30s, and you see someone like Junior Seau committing suicide, leaving his family behind, we got to figure out a way you can't always eliminate it. It's a violent sport. We got to figure a way to minimize that as much as possible. And I think, I think there's going to be rules in place that are kind of maybe known as the Tua rule.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. And for those who don't know, my day job is a sports talk radio host, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing a lot of phenomenal people, athletes, celebrities, one of my most powerful interviews I ever did, it was a few years ago, was Dr. Bennett Omalu, of course. He is played by Will Smith in the Concussion movie and all that jazz. And again, the guy was able to really dig in on CTE. We had him on the show, and it was a 40-minute conversation. And it was after, here locally, we had a former Syracuse player commit suicide. And it ended up being he was suffering from CTE. So it was a very powerful conversation on our local airwaves. And I was able to get Dr. Omalu. It was powerful. We had him initially scheduled for 1 week, and then he said, hey, Paul, I got brain surgery today. Do you think we can move the interview? I'm like, of course, Dr. Omalu, move the gosh darn interview, man. We'll do whatever for you. And we eventually get him on, and powerful conversation of that kind of stuff. So again, concussions are incredibly serious. I've had multiple concussions in my life, both playing football and taekwondo and this like mixed martial arts sparring. So I've had a lot of concussions in my life that have really messed me up. So again,
too, man.
So speaking from personal experience, and to points where I've blacked out, points where my speech has been slurred for hours. Like I've had serious concussion issues, and I'll just tell you, as someone who's been in the trenches, so to speak, on multiple occasions in different sports. Again, it's incredibly serious, and we'll see what happens. I would be surprised if Tua plays again this year, and we'll see about all the retirement stuff and rule changes and things of that nature. I think he could be onto something there from that Buffalo. So again, Teddy Bridgewater time. We will see. To me personally, I still think no matter what, there's no way in hell the Bills lose to New England, who, by the way, stinks. I know everyone says, well, now they're playing Teddy, so New England's automatically going to win. I don't know. This New England team looks completely disheveled, and I have no faith in them whatsoever in a good way that I don't think they have any chance of being Buffalo.
No.
And we'll
I think you'll see
Miami,
Bailey Zapp in that game at some point. Mac Jones is probably on his way back to getting benched, and I agree with you. The game in Buffalo, the only way I could see that game being won by the Patriots is an injury to either Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, because the only way the Bills can lock up the 1 seed before that game is if they beat Cincy, which they could, and the Chiefs lose at home to the Russell Wilson-led Broncos. So, and once those two things happen, I just can't imagine a Bills team, as long as they have their quarterback at home playing for the 1 seed, so they don't have to go to damn Arrowhead and get their soul snatched again against the Patriots. Remember the last time the Patriots played in Buffalo? I was there. It was like 0 degrees, and the Bills did not punt. So you got to feel like if you're the Jets, you almost control your own destiny a little bit. But here's the thing. The Jets kick off at 4:15, I believe. So if the Patriots,
right.
We'll know that there could be a chance that the Jets are in control of their own destiny by the time they kick off. Damn that. We better beat Seattle. This all better not just be for 1 week of just false hope, man. Come on.
Yeah, see, this is the wild thing, and to be honest with you, and we'll wrap up in the next few minutes. I see we have a few more YouTube Super Chats, so we'll get to those in a second. But just on that same breath, so you can look at this in 2 ways. One is like, holy crap. If the Jets simply would have taken care of business, they would be in the playoffs right now. It's over. If they would have, again, pick anyone, but recently the home game against the Lions, which was the 4th and inches, Zach Wilson led the team down, scored a touchdown. They should have won that game. They did not. Jacksonville, now you could say shoulda, woulda. Again, they lost by multiple scores, but if you have any competent quarterback in there that can move the ball, who knows what happens? Although I thought Doug Peterson was really in his bag, so maybe they always lose that game. But the point is, look at all these games that were in the balance. Vikings, the second Buffalo game, this game. And if they win 1, 2 of those games, they're in a completely different position right now. However, I choose to look at it with the glass half full, which is my normal approach to life. Despite all that crap that happened and all the games they could have, should have, would have had, that shit doesn't matter. You, to your point, Buffalo, basically control your own destiny. And again, I feel very confident. I don't think it's bloated confidence either that New England is going to lose at least one of the next 2, if not both. So again, you just need to win your 2, and you punch your freaking ticket into the playoffs. Despite this weird up and down season, you can finally end the gosh darn playoff drought. And whatever you do in the playoffs is going to be gravy. I'm going to be rooting for, again, someone asked earlier, but I'll just throw it up, that right now the Jets would travel to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs. And by the way, I don't give a flying beep. Roll it out. Let's roll the ball out right now. I don't care who we play. The Chiefs, Bills, Mars, the planet, it does not matter to me. Play the game and let's go. Let's end the playoff round and see what happens. Who knows? It's an oblong-shaped football. Balls can bounce in crazy ways. We'll see what happens.
We played the Bills twice this year, did we not, Paul?
We did, yeah.
Both one-score games, and I think we won one of them.
We did, and arguably could have
Let's
won the
go.
second one if Joe Flacco's lifeless corpse didn't come in. So again, that to me gave me confidence not only in this Jets team to be able to compete with anyone, including the Kansas City Patrick Mahomes, really anybody, especially when you have competent quarterback play. So again, we'll see how that goes. But to me, the Jets just have to handle their own business. And the way I look at it is just these final two games. You're playing two slumping teams. Seattle has a horrible rush defense, or 31st in the league, but also just kind of a horrible defense in general, outside of some of their cornerback play that has been okay. Just overall, though, these are two eminently winnable games. The Jets have their chance, and they have no one to blame but themselves. They can't bullshit about this officiating thing for throughout the season. You control your own destiny with 2 games to go, essentially. I know New England has to lose one of the two. Like, just freaking go deliver, because if you don't, I will be underwhelmed with the season no matter what.
Well, especially if we, I don't care about, draft status. You can't lose the game
I don't care.
End the season on a 6-game losing streak. I know,
No.
we said 7-9 would be okay. Dude, if you lose 6 in a row and you're still not sure if you have a quarterback, I'm not going to say it's a failure. I can't call that a success, though.
100%. Geno Faust, both with the YouTube Super Chat here, which is beautiful, and also the Boy Green Super Fan Club. Dink, dink, dink. You see a little membership. Feel free to join the Boy Green Super Fan Club. Boy Green, Buffalo, great show. And again, I say this all the time, but I don't say it enough. The reason this show exists, the reason this is happening right now live on a Wednesday, is Buffalo's idea. His people reached out to me. He said, I'm a big fan. Can I get an autograph for all my children? I said, okay, sure. And he said, hey, by the way, since I have you here, let's do a show. And I'm like, all right, you crazy bastard. Let's do this thing. And it's been spectacular. So the fans have been crazy. We've been doing it since the summer, and will be forever this Boy Green Buffalo show, which I'm looking forward to. So all the compliments to the chef, all the compliments to Buffalo Jet Fan, which again, his YouTube channel is down below. Please make sure you click and subscribe and make sure you guys see it. I'm seeing a couple more super chats go in here, so we'll get those in before we send Buffalo on his merry way. By the way, you guys can do this as well. If you go to the Buffalo YouTube channel, he's got a Seattle preview I saw that's scheduled to start tomorrow around 12:15. You can click and notify me, and when that hits, if you're not already subscribed and have the bell notification, you'll get an additional notification. Is that correct, Buffalo?
Yeah, I don't even do this for my own channel. This is great. I got to hire you.
Yes, please do. Please do. I'd really appreciate it. All right, here's the other YouTube super chat. I think this is the last one, but I'll make sure we double check. Feed the Fat Rabbit, one of my favorite guys on our channel. Carr endured mess in Oakland. Never a top defensive unit on either side, which Buffalo brought up earlier. Carousel of OC and HC, but the offensive coordinator, head coach. He could truly pray, which is something Wilson can't do. Scissors emoji. Brutal. Feed the Fat Rabbit, which I would expect nothing less of a man of your character. I will say this. So first off, the endured the mess. That's the thing for me that I think kind of gets lost in the shuffle. Again, you can have recency bias and you can point to Carr. And if Carr continues to suck, then you can come back and freezing cold take me when I say I'm looking beyond the year. The year is a disaster. Sure, he has Devontae Adams and it didn't work out for whatever reason. He's put up pretty good numbers, but overall, obviously, the sense was they were going to be competing for all kinds of things, and obviously they were not. Derek Carr is getting benched for the final 2 games. I don't think really for performance. I mean, technically it's performance, but like really not, because there's no way you're saying performance, then you're going to who's the guy? It's the former Patriots guy, Jarrett Stidham. Like, come on. Like, that's not really happening. So
no, we
it's
know
just
what Jarrett
been a
Stidham
mess.
is. Give me a break.
100%. He's thrown 66 passes in his career. So again, he's getting benched, but not really getting benched. So I saw a few people questioning, saying, "Oh, you really want to trade for a bench guy? Come on, people.
He's getting put on ice.
That's not real." 100%. He's just getting put on ice because again, they have to protect themselves. If Carr gets injured, and again, that's always possible in the game of football, then they'd owe him all kinds of guarantees, and they would bone themselves in their own potential trade value or anything that could happen there. So I agree with you, Feed the Fat Rabbit. I think he's endured crazy messes. And by the way, I think some people calling him a quitter with him leaving the team for the final 2 weeks. He's a distraction of not doing it. To me, you could speak on whatever you want with that. The overall thing to me, everything that has happened with the Raiders. So John Gruden, the racist emails come out. Henry Ruggs and the horrible, tragic situation of a lost life. That happened. There are other Arnett, their corner, who got in the gun thing. Like, so there has been, and that's just 3 off the top of my head. I'm sure there's even more with the Raiders and all their craziness. The Richie Incognito thing was another one. So, like, there's a million things of stuff they had. And Derek Carr grabbed his balls and stepped up to the podium and just took bullets. What are your thoughts on, like, oh wow, Henry Ruggs got in this tragic car accident that killed somebody. Thoughts? And then he's just gonna like emotionally like unload. Like he's been the face of the franchise, the shield that's been in front of there, and people made fun of him for crying earlier this year. Like he is so passionate, he cares so much about it. He's always out there answering the toughest questions.
Somebody should have been crying in the Jets locker room after some of these games.
100%. Right.
I was almost crying after the Patriots game.
Oh man, I was at a bar. The second game, I was at a bar with another Jets fan crying at the bar stool for that one because again, it's New England, and also again, as we look back, I didn't even mention those two New England games, by the way, and all the games that the Jets blew earlier this year that would have put them in a different position. So, long story short is, again, it's playoffs and all that right now. We'll get a prediction from Buffalo before we get out of here, but like. The futuristic talk, Carr is one of the top names on my list, and apparently he is quite divisive because I've had Jet fans blowing me up all day long that he is mid, he sucks. I had one guy tweet at me 50 times today about the Derek Carr thing, and I just kept seeing it pop up on my phone. I did not mute this individual, but I just kept taking the tweets of like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Derek Carr sucks. You know nothing. And I appreciate him still following me on Twitter, by the way.
Tell me you don't watch football without telling me you don't watch football. Is that I get told that a lot. You know what the problem is? I do watch a lot of football. You know who I watch? The damn Jets. And they have never had a quarterback like Derek Carr in my life. Since Chad Pennington briefly.
Yeah. So I just think for that matter alone, I think we need to change our tastes for this. So a wide-ranging show. We had revenge games. We had this and that. I'll give my quick announcement, and we'll do our predictions before we get out of here, Buffalo. First off, everybody, we're going to have a brand new show to unveil. It'll be starting tomorrow. I will be doing a new weekly show with former general manager, executive of the year, Randy Mueller, who is, again, our heavy NFL front office insider. He was the executive of the year, former general manager of both the Dolphins and the Saints. Will be having a weekly show, giving you a GM perspective on all the things that are happening around the league. So I'm looking forward to that new baby. That's getting unveiled tomorrow, guys, on the show. So look forward to that. Also, we'll have our Seattle Seahawks preview with the Seahawks insider. That should be coming up on Friday's show as well. So a lot of juicy stuff coming and more stuff coming for the channel. I can't reveal all those nuggets, but a nice little boost. Promo team, a lot of new graphics and stuff. So a lot of cool stuff is coming from that perspective as well. So guys, I told you there'd be a nice little tease there at the end. So let's do that. But with that being said, Buffalo, let's get back to the brass tacks here. It's do or die. Jets, Seahawks. I mean, this is what we all wanted. I mean, games that mean something, not only just for like playing spoiler, like your own self. The Seahawks are fighting for the playoffs. The Jets are fighting for the playoffs. How do you predict this one coming out? The Jets are in a slump. The Seahawks are in a slump. Somebody's got to win this very meaningful game.
So normally when I pick the Jets to win, I kind of hedge my bet with a close prediction. I think the Jets break out of this slump, and I think they win this one quite convincingly. I think the defense comes back to how it looked before. I think they force a couple of turnovers. I think that Bam Knight gets unlocked versus the league's worst rushing defense, and I think the Jets win this one going away 31-17.
I hope so. I hope we do get that. And by the way, I think it's possible. I know
I picked us to beat the Jaguars, so
I guess that's true. Connor Hughes said he had a dream this week of Mike White throwing 5 touchdown passes against the Seattle Seahawks. Again, one for every one of his jersey numbers. I saw that on Twitter. So speak it into existence, Mr. Connor Hughes of SNY. We will see if that indeed happens. I hope we're dropping 31 points. I think that's good news for the Jets if they are, because what's the record? The Jets are 7-1 when they score more than 18 points this year. Is that the stat I saw earlier? So again, if they score points, they win games, especially with how well this defense is played. So I will be in that ballpark, but I think it's a little uglier. I have the Jets winning 18-15 over the Seattle Seahawks. But boy, I hope it is convincing. It's been too damn long. The Bears game was the last time they had a convincing win where it was on cruise control. All that week, not to be arrogant and crap on Bears fans, I'm like, oh, we're beating the Bears. That's not an if. How many points are we going to beat them by? And it ended up being that way, although a little rocky at first. So I believe the Jets are going to win. And then again, the Dolphins game is TBD, but that's fully expected to be promoted into some level of primetime, either Saturday night football or Sunday night football. And man, do or die in Saturday or Sunday night football. How else could you possibly have it? Which could be pretty exciting. Buffalo, as always, another great show. We will, of course, shift this show to your channel next week. And wow, that works out for what could be a play-in game, winning you're in. A lot of buzz potentially around that. Buffalo, set us up for, is there any other thing? Of course, we promoted your Seattle preview tomorrow. Is there anything else coming up on the show for you on your channel, which, by the way, YouTube link in the description down below for stuff coming on the channel? Promote it, baby.
Well, I have the week off of my my day job, so just expect more content. Trying to do more
Nice.
live streams, so probably a live stream every day up until New Year's. So not as many famous guests as Paul Boy Green, but my videos aren't as high quality as Paul's, but I just make 3 times as many, and hopefully that makes up for it.
And by the way, speaking of 3 times as many followers over there. I mean, fantastic. He's approaching 10K, which, by the way, is quite a number. So I was just celebrating 3K, and he's like, Paul, I did that 30 years ago. I'm like, well, okay, incremental crawl before you walk, sort of thing. But nonetheless, Buffalo, this was a lot of fun. I'm sure we'll be messaging each other. It's going to be a crazy game on Sunday with everything on the line. Again, if they lose, it's over. If they win and they're still alive, we're already in the playoffs right now for the New York Jets, and it's going to be exciting and nerve-wracking and everything else in between. But I'm scared, ready, and not ready for it.
Meaningful games in January. Let's go, Paul.
All right, there he is. Buffalo Jet fan. Make sure, again, you guys subscribe to his YouTube channel. That link is down below. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you later this week.